when we look at that, I think looking at your individual clients, it's so easy that we will give up our processes, we'll give up who we are to make sure a real estate transaction happens. And us coaching as much as we do, usually we find out that's where the most turmoil comes out of the working relationships, where people are like, my clients are driving me insane. And usually it's because they gave up too much. And I think in parenting is the same way. You lose your foundation of who you are as a parent. Even though you have to parent differently to all these kids, you still have to have your fundamental grounding of who you are, what you stand for, what your processes are, and then you can tailor it out to these people, but you can't give up everything to those outside people.
Welcome to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. And here we are on location today, which if you're watching on YouTube, you can obviously see that now because Garrett and I are in the same room where we're usually 3,000 miles apart, which is really cool. And we are in the middle in the Dallas-Fort Worth area at the Dennis Tuttle Team here in Mansfield, which is incredible to be here. Thank you so much, Dennis, for inviting us. If you guys haven't listened to Dennis's episode, you can go find that. Just search Dennis Tuttle on our podcast list and you'll find it. And we were here last night and we had an incredible experience. Dennis and his team hosted Nick Vujicic, and he gave an incredible speech, and it really inspired us. And we're going to talk about our takeaways here on today's podcast. Garrett, I don't. Good morning. Is it even morning right now?
We're not going to get caught up in the details, but obviously great to be here. The event last night was absolutely amazing, and Dennis and your team put on this. I have to say, the office that we're sitting at right now, it is some of the best energy I've been around in many years, and it started right the minute that we walked into the event last night. Every person that walked up to us came up to us with this incredible energy that Matt and I kept going like, whoa, like, okay, that was one. And then it was like another one and another one. And it was like, what is going on? Like, and so I told him, I said, tomorrow's gonna be really fun. I said, whether we have energy or not, the room is gonna have amazing energy. So
yeah, it was definitely, I mean, not only was Nick great to see him, but just seeing the whole operation that y'all put on. And it was just incredible from the moment, from the marquee with the name and everything on it to walking in the door. I mean, it was unreasonable hospitality the entire way, to the silent auction for building blocks for kids. It was a wonderful experience.
So where we thought we'd go down today is that obviously coming out at an event like that, Matt and I have not stopped talking about it. This group of people that we're sitting with right now, we have not stopped talking about it. We've been actually here with how many hours now? 2 hours, 3 hours together? And it's been amazing to go through and hear everybody's experiences. So we're like, instead of trying to come up with some crazy podcast topic for today, there's a lot of great stuff that's just going to roll out of our normal dialogue. We have some great questions in the room and some great feedback from people about what last night meant. And I think we should just kick this off. There's something that keeps coming back for me, Matt, more and more and more. And we talk about the book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which we just recently read. And then we have Nick, who presented to us last night. And one of the things that I got out of it that really resonated with me was be you. Find the version of you and be you. I kept coming back to it as he was talking about it. And I'm like, I've been sharing with people that like this keeps coming into my world right now on so many different levels. And I think we're in an environment that we try so hard to fit in. We've been trying to fit in ever since we were little kids. There's always the popular group. Well, what if I was part of the popular group and I could fit in with that group? Or maybe I might have more friends if I acted a little bit different or a different way over here. And he kept saying that last night. He kept talking about like, maybe I'll swear for a little bit. Maybe that'll make me feel like I like fit in with people. And I didn't feel right. And I think like in our world today, it is so important. And Matt, you and I talked about this in the car. It's like you got to have a guiding light of being a good person and wanting to take care of others and wanting to bring the best out of everybody around you. But at the end point, like be you at the best version you can possibly be. And that's what our world needs so much. Right? I couldn't get that out of my head. I'm like, I just keep getting this from 1,000 different ways.
I was thinking about it, and we talked a little bit about this in the car too, because as coaches, we get asked all the time, what are other people doing? What should I do? Can you just give me the playbook on exactly what I should do? And I'll go do it, and I will see success just like that person over there. And it's interesting because it's like, well, I could see 2, 3, 4, 100 people run the same play, and they're all going to have different results because they're all different people. And so the answer isn't like, well, just do what Kevin does, what Heather does, what Garrett does. Like, that's not going to be the answer for you. It's like, hey, first we have to figure out who are you called to be, and then go live that, and then follow kind of the principles of living a good life. Because it's a life that is well lived, which creates the example that creates the impact. It's actually in the book that we're reading right now, Money Unmasked. He talks about the money and the success and all the other things come as a result of a life well lived. And that life can only be well lived if you're living your life. So
speaking of that, there was a comment that he said where he talked about like the drivers that make us sometimes go outside of it. He said alcohol, drugs. He included money in that, which made me stop and go like, that's a really interesting. I've never heard anybody take money and use it into that realm that'll make us act outside of our normal being, act us outside of our normal self, which that really got my attention last night.
Yeah. Well, and we're coming up on this. I think we'll release right after we started business planning. But whenever we get into business planning, it's usually, okay, what's my goal? How much money do I want to make? How many transactions do I need to do? Which is important, because that's kind of help us achieve business success. We don't want to ignore that profitability in a business is important for its sustainability, and profitability is what fuels the opportunity to serve at a higher level. I watched a video on Movement Mortgage recently, and the founder Casey was talking about how the profitability is what allows us to go and do our service. So it's important. However, that comes as a result of what our mission is, which is to serve others. And it is interesting, if you put money first, it's going to be really hard to follow through. But if you put your purpose and your mission first, then all of a sudden, now the money shows up. Doesn't mean that we don't want to still keep track of those things, but he's right. A lot of people say, well, money doesn't change you, it just amplifies you. He's like, well, but a focus on money changes you. Sure.
Tim Ferriss said one time, he says, money doesn't change you, it just reveals who you are when you no longer have to be nice to people. I love that quote.
That is good. Well, we have a whole audience here, which is really cool. And we had some really key takeaways from it. So I want to invite people to come share. We have a microphone here as well. So why don't we start with Kim, since you're here.
Yeah, if you want to jump in, you had a great
kind of building on this being you, because you had a really great takeaway from last night.
So I just was saying, Nick had shared about, he has 4 children, you have 4 children, you have 4 different parenting styles. They're 4 different, very different people. And just the intentionality in finding that person, not parenting, child 1 to, child 4. It just isn't going to work. And really looking for those individual gifts and helping them to see and understand that their greatness, which, to what you said, Matt, it just, it helps you live as an adult, that your true purpose.
Yeah. I think what's so interesting about that too is to be able to parent in that way. Because I have 2 young daughters, and I was like, but you have to be comfortable with knowing that you are unique too. Because if we try to make our kids the same, Garrett, you have a great example of this because you have twin daughters, and they are very different. And it's like, well, how does that happen when you raise them the same, but I think you had them in the same environment, but you also treated them as individuals. But to do that, you also have to understand your own individuality, which that was an interesting kind of solid line between those 2 themes.
Yeah, it's interesting having twins because, again, we removed all TV, everything out of their world for the first 10 years of their life. It was just us in our home, living life, spending time together. I worked out of the house. My wife worked out of the house. They got us full time all the time. And it's interesting to watch with now 3 people. So I have 2 21-year-olds and an 18-year-old. And it's amazing to watch how uniquely, incredibly different they all are. One of them's right now currently in the Dolomites in Switzerland. Just got a picture from this morning sitting on top of a mountain. By herself, solo traveling. And then we have another one who's an engineer and decided the school route was the best route for her. And you take these 2 different people and you can't talk to them the same. You can't educate them the same. You can't be there and we're not going to cry over the same things together. Like, everything is so incredibly different. So I really appreciated what he had to say about that too. It was probably the one moment where he was talking about children and how you teach and give into them differently, each one of them. Probably the main time I was like, I'm gonna cry. Like, this is where it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen right here. But it really brought it back to me about how just important each of those individuals are.
It ties into how we serve our clients too, right? Because each client is unique. We were just talking about how real estate is not a commodity. And Dennis, you had brought up how, for this period of time we're going through where in 2008, sellers had to sell. Like, they had to sell their house. Whereas now it's like, well, if the house doesn't sell, I got this rate, I might as well keep the home. And this gets into understanding what is the purpose that they're trying to accomplish, sellers and buyers. And if we serve all of our clients the exact same way from a personality standpoint, we're going to end up in a lot of these roadblocks. Now, yes, we have a process. Don't change your process. You still want to run through that. It's not like, oh, well, I can skip this step. I know this person. Not at all. But asking the questions, using the process to help you understand the unique individual of your clients, because then you're going to be able to show up for them in a different way. You're going to help them achieve their clarity so that they can make the decisions on where to price a home, where to write the offer at. And it kind of connects with that parenting thing of making sure that you're laying out the opportunities. And Dennis, you did something on stage yesterday that had me thinking that was so cool, is when you're talking about the story of little Dennis, and which is so cool. And I know you shared the story in the podcast, but for those of you who didn't hear it, and you're listening to now for the first time, at the age of 5, little Dennis was like, I want to be a missionary. And you said, hey, cool, what's that? Whereas, like, well, we already know what that is, but instead of you saying, oh, that's interesting, and then moving on, you asked him a question and said, what is that? Because you wanted to hear him say it. And I was like, it matters who says it. And that's so true with our clients too. So I appreciate you sharing that story, because like, that's so cool. And then he went on at 7 years old to start his mission and building block for kids.
I want to add in the power of the what is that? And obviously we know the answer to it, but I think it's so often that when we're working with clients, we're working with people, we think we understand what they mean when they say something, and having that moment of being like, can you describe that for me, of what that looks like for you, or like, what is that? All of a sudden you get to see it through their eyes of what their dream or their vision is of what that word means to them. And sometimes we're wrong. Like, a lot of times we're very wrong of what that means, or they have picked up on a meaning of a word or a meaning of a situation that they might not understand what that word means. And so Dennis is awesome. That caught my attention too when you said that, because I was like, that's that moment that you can actually go, oh, like, I'm now learning from the person that's sitting in front of me, rather than me assuming that I know what they're talking about, which we need to do more of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, that was the reason I asked him. Same thing when he said, I want to be a Lego missionary. I was like, well, what is that? And I wanted to make sure he didn't think like a missionary was someone who gave ice cream out all day or something, like
by the way, totally okay.
Which would be great. But it was like, yeah, what is that? Like, what is a missionary? And when he said his response, it's like, okay, yeah, we're on the same page. That's awesome. But I think what Kim was saying, with being intentional, and all your kids are different. I have 5 kids. And what Nick said, I never heard it say, he said, if you have more than one kid, you've learned how to parent more than one way. And I'm thinking, man, I've learned how to parent 5 different ways, because I have 5 different kids. They all act different. And it is the same for our clients. You can't have this like one size fits all mentality on that. But I think even in that sense is like, just because a client or your kid says something, it doesn't mean that's the same definition for them as it would be one of your other kids or one of your other clients. So asking questions, being inquisitive, tell me what that means to you. What does that look like? Is huge, because then that gives you, as the leader of that, maybe that person, that conversation, what is the next step, right, on that? And so
So I think bring this again into real estate a little bit here, because that's what we're all here for on a bigger picture, I guess. When we look at that, I think looking at your individual clients, it's so easy that we will give up our processes, we'll give up who we are to make sure a real estate transaction happens. And us coaching as much as we do, usually we find out that's where the most turmoil comes out of the working relationships, where people are like, my clients are driving me insane. And usually it's because they gave up too much. And I think in parenting's the same way. You lose your foundation of who you are as a parent. Even though you have to parent differently to all these kids, you still have to have your fundamental grounding of who you are, what you stand for, what your processes are, and then you can tailor it out to these people, but you can't give up everything to those outside people. So I think there's a lot you can kind of turn into there. So
yeah, just saying yes to everything doesn't work out when you're parenting kids, and it doesn't work when you're also shepherding your clients.
If you're looking for adventure, the yes there is a great one, but not always in business. We're not looking for that much adventure.
That is a good point. And I think I had this conversation with a client actually yesterday, and we were looking at the goal for one of his clients. It was like, to sell the home fast for the most money. And I said, cool, that's a good goal to have in terms of what you want the result of the transaction to be, but why? Why do they want to sell fast and for the most money? Well, they already bought a house on the beach and they would really love to be there full time and not have the burden of this house on it. It's like, so they want to, as quickly as possible, get to the beach and enjoy their life. That's now the reason why they want to sell. So when you talk about selling for the fastest time and the most money, first of all, we have two competing goals right there, most likely, because, if you want to sell for the most money, hold on to the house for another 100 years and you're going to get more money out of it, unless you end up selling in a dip at that point. But it's like, if the goal is really to get to the beach and you want to then have as much capital to go enjoy at the beach, let's build that idea out to help that seller make a great decision, because this particular property we were talking about is in a neighborhood that's taking a long time to sell, and is like, now they're getting ready to position it way in front of line, which I think is going to help them achieve their goal. But having that conversation to break it down, where sometimes as realtors, we know, they want to sell fast, they want to sell for the most money, or they're selling because of this reason. Great that we might know, but having them know by asking those questions makes all the difference.
Usually what you'll find is the time is actually more valuable than the money. It sounds great to say we want to sell for the most amount of money, we want a realtor that's going to get us the most amount of dollars, but at the end of the day, if you really break it down, time is limited. Our lives are limited. The amount of time we get to spend here, all of us together here right now, it's limited time. So when you start looking at like the life and the dreams and being at the beach and being able to have the grandkids come to be to the beach, it's like, we could get stuck in how much money we're going to get for this property right now, but wouldn't it be better to be at the beach? Like, wouldn't it be better to be there? So I think we should open this up to another question. Yeah. By the way, that was thank you so much for kicking that off for us.
DeAndre had something really good, and so we're going to have him walk up and share.
This is great, being able to get all this different perspectives.
So I think my biggest takeaway this week and yesterday with Nick was, he talked about you cannot easily identify the amount of seeds in an apple, but you can identify the amount of apples that come from a seed. And I think for me personally, it's very easy to think like I'm spending time with people, spending time with clients, family members, whatever, and it's all time wasted, because you can't, for me, I like to see the outcome very quickly, and you don't always get to see the outcome, or you don't get to see how big the outcome is. But really, I've learned this year, and really yesterday, is the outcome is not the gift. The gift, it's the obedience that God sent you to maybe have a conversation or say something encouraging or just do anything, help them sell their house. Like, it's all seed sown. It's all something you did for somebody else. But because we don't see, there's the result of that always right away, it's like, it's not just a waste of time, So that was the biggest thing for me, and just a good reminder,
Yeah. The whole farmer thought of that too. Like, you sow seeds, you wait for the crop, you are patient. Not every seed's gonna bear fruit and all that kind of stuff. And even particularly with this apple thing, because it made you think like, oh gosh. And if we translate that into business, in life, it's like, okay, every moment we have an opportunity to impact somebody's life. That conversation we have at the grocery store, the guy that we're talking to maybe when we're pumping gas at the gas station, those little moments having the opportunity to create impact. But even in our business, we look for that. Okay, how does this event, this marketing thing, this strategy result in X amount of business, when it's, well, if we just focus on the planting of those seeds, we know an apple can come from a seed, but it's also, well, how many can come from that one seed? Because that can grow a tree, it can grow an orchard, can grow so many things. And if we approach our business that way of like, how do we serve our community, serve our database in a way where we just plant these seeds and the apples that come back are the referrals, right? I mean, right now, how many people have seen social media videos or have heard people say, oh, referral businesses are dead. If you're relying on your database for business, like that's going away. You need to have multiple streams, right? I see
they've been saying that forever, by the way.
I know. But now it's coming about because, consolidation, these big conglomerates are going to be able to market way more than you ever could. It's like, yeah, they could market potentially, but they're not going to be able to plant those seeds like you can into your database, which create the impact and the connection that lead to, man, DeAndre is my guy. Like, he is my realtor. I've never done a transaction with him, but he's mine because of the seeds that he's planted in my life. And all that comes up non-consciously. Like, clients don't necessarily think about, oh, well, I've received 10 seeds from DeAndre, so I'm going to go, use him to sell my house. It's just, that connection is there.
So the thought that came up for me around this whole seeds and apples and whatnot is that there's a lot of seeds in a lot of apples that never actually turn into a tree. They never get that chance to be able to be, and they have to be in the right environment, that be nurtured the right way, because you could turn every seed into an apple tree if you want to, which would then produce apples. But I think, like, when I look at that, it's like a database is what I was thinking about, is that here we have all these people. We don't give attention to enough of them. We don't give enough frequency of attention. We don't give the best energy, which we've been talking about all morning, which was, how do you protect your energy, which is part of giving the right environment to these seeds when we are around them. And so we have these databases of these incredible people, and we can neglect them all day long, and they're all seeds in an apple that just aren't getting water, they're not getting fertilizer, they're not getting everything they need to turn into something in the future for what we're building and being able to help them. That's what I was thinking about, is like, how many people have access to all these seeds that are just going like, yeah, but... And there's all these opportunities all around us to say, if we just give a little bit of a time, constant energy, constant, there is so much there. So much there.
And you have to put a lot of seeds down. I mean, Jesus spoke this too, right? He said, when you go and sow seeds, like, some seeds are going to fall on fertile ground and they will grow, but some are going to fall on the path. Some are going to fall in the thicket. Some are not going to see, they're going to get burned up as soon as they sprout. They're not going to get the water. And so you are much more likely to create impact if you are able to throw many seeds out there, because you only need a few of them to produce in order to see incredible results, incredible impact in your business, in your life, with your family. And so I loved that thing. I never heard somebody say that. It was like, you can count how many seeds in an apple, but you can't count how many apples come from a seed, which I think is incredible.
To that, I'm glad that you spoke on that, time on task over time, because you just really don't know, where someone is, because you could have planted a seed and then Matt could have come along and, loved on it a little bit, but still neither one of you have seen anything, and 4 people down the road, then it starts to grow. It's just that time on task. And so just like not giving up on it, and to continue, with that, quick result issue, but just to continue to water and care for those seeds, because you just don't know about that timeline.
There's an old video that I'm going to absolutely butcher, but they actually go and they document it throughout the actual day of like one person doing a good deed for somebody, and then somebody sees that good deed happening, and then that spurs them to then go like, oh, feeling a little lighter, they take care of somebody else sees that happen. And they were tracing it all the way back to the entire day of like one single person just taking some time and taking care of somebody. Here it affected, 100 people throughout the day that they never get a chance to see. And I think that's a big part of like, when you talk about the seeds and how many apples, is that you don't know how many great things that are going to happen because of that one simple thing that you might have done.
Well, I would add this too, is like relationships and sowing seeds in people. It is a lot of work, and people would rather say, oh, that's not scalable. And what they mean is it's not easily scalable, right? You can't just put some more coins in and get more output. Like, it actually takes time and work to sow those seeds. I can't remember who said it, some very famous person, but he said a lot of times people miss opportunities because it's dressed in overalls and looks like hard work. And that's the truth with opportunities. I want to quote also John Israel, Mr. Thank You, who was there and also on your podcast and helped present that gift to Nick last night. But he goes around teaching gratitude, right? Which is nothing but sowing seeds into people. And people always come up to John and say, John, what's the ROI on this giving gratitude thing? And I love that question because we get that too. People are like, what's the catch? Why are you doing all this stuff? Why are you pouring into people? Like, what's the return? What do you get out of it? And John's response, I think, is just awesome. He says, well, what's the cost of taking people for granted? And I think when we look at that with our people, whether it starts with our family and our kids, but then also our clients and those around us, and maybe even those that you could just, you probably never would get anything in return, right? But what's the cost of taking people for granted? What's the cost of not sowing those seeds? And like you said, Matt, you don't know which seeds are going to bloom, and it may have nothing to do with you, right? And I think when you can go mission first and let the results take care of themselves, I don't see how you can lose, you know?
I look at it like a flywheel, and it's one of those things when you first start and try to get a flywheel going or get a motor going, it takes a lot of effort. And this is where the scalability thing comes up, is because most people don't give enough time. They give up way too early. And the cool part is that if you can start that energy going, you get that flywheel going, they're in your business, specifically when it comes to referrals and relationships, you will create this space, this environment where when you have enough people that trust you and they want their friends taken care of and all this, it turns into this wild machine that it's just more people just keep coming and more people keep coming. And it's like, well, what are you doing to create it? I don't know. I'm just showing up and I'm, being a good person and taking care of people. And I just keep doing that and more just keeps coming in. And it's a wild thing when you get to see it actually start to take form. But I would say most people give up way before the apple tree ever grows.
I think what's interesting about that too, and Nick was incredible because he was super vulnerable about his personal journey, his life, and his ups and downs that he has to this day. He was like, oh, have you ever been depressed? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I was like, okay, all right. This is a guy who you look at and you're like, okay, he has no arms and legs, but he is achieving such massive impact. And so we think, oh, he's got it all figured out. And it doesn't matter whether you have it figured out or not. There's always these ups and downs you go through. And we don't see those things in other people very often. And it reminded me of the photo that I saw that somebody had shared. And it was a picture of a car. And there was a sign on the back that said, I'm sorry, I'm learning how to drive manual transmission. Please be patient. And the person who shared it said, I saw this and I was patient and the person stalled and, I just sat there and waited and it was nice. I said, but it made me think, if that sign wasn't there, would I have been patient? Would I have been frustrated? Because oftentimes when we see people, they don't have a sign on the back of their car or in front of them that says, hey, just lost a spouse, just went through this really tough thing. And that made me think of a story that Stephen Covey had shared where he was on a subway car and a man and it was like 2 or 3 kids had came on and the kids were just kind of all over the place. And the guy was just kind of sitting there not paying attention to his kids. And he was like, this is getting kind of annoying. And he got frustrated at some point and he said, hey, excuse me, sir, can you control your kids? They're being a little unruly. And the man said to him and says, well, yeah, I'm sorry. Hey, kids, can you come sit down? He's like, we just came from the hospital where they lost their mom and I don't know what to do. And he said everything switched in that moment. It went from frustration to compassion. And, thinking about what you said there in terms of negative seeds, right? Like what taking people for granted, what John said. I was like, and even for Nick, when he was saying, if my parents didn't say, you're great, you're great, you're great so many times, he's like, when I was in that bathtub, maybe I wouldn't have stopped. And man,
Well, and I think that when the way he said it of like, there's this, you're great, I love you, you're great, I love you. And he's kind of like, yeah, Dad, I get it. Like, I got it. Thanks for sharing. And I think us as parents, a lot of times, we kind of think that we're like, I'm just almost just saying it. Like, here I am saying it again. Here I am saying it again. Like me this morning telling my daughter, like, I am so proud of you that here you are 21 years old in Europe by yourself, figuring out your way through the mountainside right now. With a horrible, she's got all kinds of antibiotics right now. The kid is toughing through some not fun stuff while still enjoying this trip. And I think that we don't know what people are going through. We see these things from the outside, and I think it's to continue to reinforce, I love you, and you're important, and you're special to me, because you never know when that's going to be banked up, and they're going to need to hear that. You never know when the right time is going to come about. That's like, I'm really grateful that I had to hear that, or I got to hear that so many times. So we can overthink all this stuff and go like, I'm just being kind of silly. It's like, you never know.
Yeah, and you think about these stories and you're like, oh, you get emotional. Like I get emotional talking about somebody else's story that has nothing to do with me. And it's like, in real estate, to bring it to that, emotions are so incredibly high. You know, we have high finance, risk. Well, kind of going on here. Certainly a big transaction. Lots of emotion because, as you were saying before, Garrett, like, when sellers go to sell their house, they have all these memories and all these things, all these emotions that are there that nobody else cares about when they're selling their house, but they care about them. And gosh, if we can, remember that when we're working with our clients, and remember that they're in this high emotion state, they're going to do things that, this could be one of your best friends. And then all of a sudden you're doing a real estate deal with them. You're like, how are they acting like that? Like, I've known you for years. It's like, because when that emotion comes up, all of this non-conscious energy comes up. Some of this pent up stuff from different experiences that they've had throughout life come out, and they're usually directed towards the realtor. And that's where we have the opportunity to either react and just kind of throw things back, or give grace and respond in a way where we can say, hey, this is a human being in front of me, and I'm going to do everything I can to help them through this. And you know what? Sometimes that may mean like they're not responsive, we don't get along, and we don't end up getting to do a deal, and that's okay. But one thing that I think we can all live with if we walk away from something like that is like, hey, I did the best I could, I showed compassion, and that means a lot to me, and I know it'll impact them down the road.
So and sometimes if you want to figure out why somebody's acting crazy, just stop and ask. I mean, you don't need to say, why are you acting insane right now? Don't go that route.
Particularly if, don't ask your wife that question. That's probably going to be.
But I think it is important to stop and be like, well, what has this property meant to you? Like, what are your most favorite memories of this property? What are the most favorite memories that you've had of family members in life that's happened in here? Because we're in a position right now that we have a very special home that's in our family, and we're looking at down the road of what does it mean to sell this home. And I have kids that are saying that's the family house. That's where all the Christmases have happened. That's where all the fun memories have happened. This is my in-laws' house. And there's this other side of it of like, when the in-laws are no longer in that house, does this house hold the same memories? Does it hold the same energy? Is it going to be that place if they're not there in that home anymore? And I think that, to have to voice that or say it out loud when you watch somebody who's acting a little bit insane, a little bit crazy, to go like, tell me what this home means to you. Tell me what this ranch means to you. It's a really important place to go, oh, that's what you're actually dealing with right now. It's not what's going to happen on inspection. It's not, is it going to appraise? It has nothing to do with that. There's a lot of other stuff behind the scenes, and I think it's important to just stop and ask and get to know more about that.
I think it's important too, when that's happening, to not our tendencies take it personal. And a lot of times, it's so funny, like anytime we've moved, it's usually my wife's idea, and then she cries every time we're on moving day, and I'm like, why are you crying? Like, this was all your idea, like you wanted to do this, you didn't like this house anymore. And she's like, well, I brought babies home here and this and that, But so there's two moves. There's an emotional move and there's a physical move. And the emotional move is the harder one typically for most people. But I think, too, we get so self-centered that we think everything's about us. So you have a client that's irate or they're being unreasonable in a wrong way and you don't know what's going on. And it's always like we take stuff personal. And it's like, no, we got to slow down and figure out like what's going on. I've had so many times with clients or with the team that someone's acting completely irrational. And it's like, look, just help them through it, figure out what's going on. They're not telling you now, but
There's something going on, I promise you, that has nothing to do with you.
and they're taking it out on you because you're the closest thing in person to them right now. But you'll find out later, and watch, in a week or two or a month or a year, they'll come back and they'll apologize because there was something else going on. And then you'll be like, oh, and it turns out it is. They were going through divorce, or they were having money challenges, or something was going on with their kids. And so not to get defensive in a transaction, but to just love your people through that transaction. And just sometimes you just got to take it on the chin and just realize you're the punching bag right now.
Yeah.
But don't punch back, because it probably has nothing to do with you. And that's just a constant reminder to keep your emotions in check on that.
So I'm figuring this out now. This is why I don't sell cars. I've only cried over cars. I have not cried over homes when I've had to sell them. And I'm starting to go like, this is so, it's interesting is that I have not had to sell a car. But it's interesting with homes is I don't think anybody, if they had the choice, they wouldn't get rid of it. They wouldn't leave that behind. But for a lot of people, they're in a position of, I have to make a decision. I have to make a move right now. Staying in this location is not an option anymore, unlike holding onto a car.
The car can go with you.
They do. They do come with you. I know this for a fact. So I think it's an interesting place of understanding, like, you know, they're maybe having to make a move, not because of want, not because of, you know, isn't this going to be great what this next journey is going to be like? A lot of them are having to say goodbye to things because that is just where they're at right now.
And I think this is the hard part too, as the professional, because there could be something going on in your life too, you know, and the client that you're working with doesn't necessarily extend always that same compassion and grace back towards you. We have seen it, and if you build wonderful relationships and you build a business based on that, you can see clients extend that grace back to you. And it's hard sometimes to be like, well, yeah, they might be going through something, but I'm going through something too. And it is difficult to manage, but I think it is upon us to manage it in a way where we don't let that come out through our business, which is why I think it's also important, and particularly for the people listening. You guys have a great team here, which I think is really awesome, which makes sense why there's a lot of energy here. Kim's like the chief energy officer here, bringing the energy up in this room. But if you're a solo agent and you feel like you're isolated, I would encourage you to find people in your world that you can just lean into and build relationships with outside your business, so that you have the opportunity to share those things. Because the clients, if they're going through tough times, they're not always going to be that person. And then when we react, it's usually because there's something going on in our lives, not because we're frustrated with the way they're coming at us. And so if we can manage that ourselves in a healthy way, then it does allow us to better serve our clients too, which is, it's hard. That's a hard thing to do.
Well, going back to family, I mean, think of the last time, like, you snapped at a child, snapped at a spouse. Is like, was it really something that they did, or was it something else going on in your life that made you react that way? Like, usually it wasn't them. It's something that we maybe had going on. Do you want to do one more question? And does anybody willing to share one more takeaway that they had out of the event? And Kim, I know you had something you want to.
Yeah, come on
up. You get to grab a microphone.
Yeah, this is cool. This is like, we don't get to often do the live podcast where we get the extra microphone and everything. So this is fun.
Okay, great. I wrote it down because I didn't want to butcher it. It was so good. He said, I don't need to hold my wife's hand. I just need to hold her heart, and you don't need arms for that. And I thought that was great.
Oh my gosh. I don't think there was a dry eye in the room after he said that.
No, and it's one of those things that I think we look at, like, what are all the tools that we have around us? How do we use those tools to be able to support the people in our world and whatnot? And when he said that, I don't need arms, I just need to hold her heart. For me, that was one of those moments of like, how much do we really make people understand that? We try to let people understand who we are and how we care about them a lot of times by physical actions. It's like, no, at a core. How many people really, truly understand how you feel, how you care about them, how you support them? Your children. A lot of times this goes back to quality time and quantity time. It's like, no, I give my kids a lot of quality time. So we got a great relationship. It's like, no. How much quantity time do you give them when they don't need necessarily you to talk to? They don't need support right now, but they know that you're there. They know that they have your space. That, for me, is what I walked away from that, just going like, there's just so much more to building really deep quality relationships.
Yeah. And what I love about that too, which is such a good takeaway, is that is through what you say, how you show up. And there are actions that you do to show that level of care. And when it comes to our businesses, I look at it as winning in the margins. It's the little things that you do, because whenever we run our business, paying attention at closing, paying attention up front, paying attention during the transaction, those are important times. That would be the quality time spent with a client. And we don't want to dismiss that or overlook that. But that call after they move into the house, hey, how did you settle in? Right? I know that your son or your wife or whoever was nervous about the move. How did they do getting through it? Is there anything that I can do? Even just saying that, what can I do for you, is one of those ways where you can say, hey, like, I care about you more than just a physical action. It goes beyond that. Dennis.
Well, I think too, like, you can't take a withdrawal from a relationship when you're not making deposits into it.
That's a good point.
And I remember I was watching something on social media, and this guy was talking, and he said, pay attention to the people in your life that call you and didn't need anything. They just called to say, hey, how you doing? And I think that as real estate agents, like, we make our job harder if we're not making deposits in our people. They only hear from us when we need something, right? And trust is the number one, I think, factor in why people choose an agent. It's the number one thing in really in a relationship is trust, and trust is built over time making those deposits. So if you want your transactions to go smoother, right, build that trust long before you get into the transaction with the client, and that comes from just making those calls and checking in on people and making forward connects and how you doing, and people remember that. People remember. It's the question we get all the time is like, what's the catch? What's the catch? What's the catch? And we'll do free classes here at the office, and people, it takes like 2 or 3 times of them coming before they realize, like, oh, they're just doing this to help us, right? And there is no catch, but it builds this insane amount of trust that's required. But anyway, you've got to make those deposits early and often.
Yeah, with your real estate transactions, it's really interesting. If you want to watch how well you're doing this and with the results that are coming into you and your business, look at a real estate transaction, then ask yourself, okay, during the transaction, it's easy to talk to them. I got many reasons to pick up the phone, make a phone call, connect. Usually once the transaction's done, it's like, well, what do we talk about? It feels uncomfortable to pick up the phone and just talk to them now, because we're not in the middle of a real estate transaction anymore. And that's when you're making those deposits. If you're really paying attention and really listening, you can reach out when it's not about the transaction. And those ones that I've watched that have mastered that, they have really reached out with their heart and through the real estate transactions, before the real estate transaction happened, and then after the real estate transaction happened. This is where you build those incredible referral relationship businesses. But when you get to the end of the transaction, you're like, I have no idea what I'm talking to them about. That's a really important thing to listen to in yourself and your own business, to say, how can I be better? How can I slow down a little bit and really actually put some care forth to this person that's in front of me? And it's just not done enough in this business. And then we wonder why it's difficult to build that type of business.
Yeah.
Well, in the book Unreasonable Hospitality, Will talks about, like, unreasonable hospitality is about connection. Did you connect with the person? And I remember being a team leader years ago and recruiting, and all these people would, come in and get into real estate, and then they'd be like, well, I don't really like people that much, and it's like, well, I was like, you are in the people business first. And so I think it's just good. Like, we spend a lot of time studying relationships and people, because that's the business we're in. We're in the people business first, and then we're in the real estate business second. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't take time to understand people, we're going to have a really hard time, doing things in this. And there's a person behind every transaction, before, after, during. And so it's just remembering that, like, this is a human being. This is a person who has emotions and needs and problems and things. And we can be there to help them with that.
Well, I think it's important to notice also that we're talking about real estate. There are very few jobs out here that do not require you to be actually somewhat good with people. There are definitely, cubicle jobs you might get, but at some point you're going to have to interact with people, and moving up the ladder and growth in those businesses, you've got to be good with people. So whenever I hear somebody that says, I don't really like people, I'm always like that. Okay, in life in general, that's what we're doing here. That's what this world's all about. We are interacting with people. We're growing with each other. We're learning from each other. It's a skill you might want to stop saying, I don't really like people. I'm not really good with people. Like, let it go. Like, because it's not serving you.
Well, last thing I'll say, and I talked to the team about this once. I said, how many of you have ever lost a transaction or lost a deal because the person said they had a friend in the business, and everybody could say, "Oh, I've lost that before because they had a friend in the business." And I said, "Well, if you want that to stop happening, be the friend."
Yep.
You weren't their friend; they had a closer relationship. Someone out-relationshiped you, and that's why they did it. So, why weren't you a friend with them first? Like, be the friend, and that goes way beyond real estate, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it does. I think too, a lot of times when people say that, if that's going through your head and you're listening, it's born out of fear. There's a fear because people say like, oh yeah, I don't like people. It's like, do you have friends? Yeah, I got friends. Oh, well then you must like some people. Or is it just a fear of engagement, a fear of going out there? And one thing to kind of pull this back around that Nick kind of talked about through all the stories was overcoming fear with purpose. Because if you're mission driven and you're just taking that one small step, it's not about taking the big leap. It's about taking these small little steps. And joke that he takes very small steps.
The arm and leg jokes were ruthless.
They were. The way they were delivered was so perfect too. And it's like if we can acknowledge that fear exists, but overcome it with saying, "Hey, I have a mission." Which gets into what we talked about earlier before we did the podcast, which is alignment with that mission. And then it's going to be, we can overcome that fear. Then it's not about, it's not that I don't like people. I just had a fear of engaging people. And now I can overcome that fear because I know what my purpose is in terms of what I'm trying to accomplish in life and in my business, which is a beautiful thing.
Dennis likes having a microphone.
Second last thing.
PPS.
Well,
PPS.
Here's what happens. Love, I love this definition, is to will and to act to the highest good of the other person. Okay? And so if you're always willing and acting to the person's highest good, your client, that's walking in love, right? And there's a Bible verse that says, perfect love casts out all fear, to go with what you're saying, Matt. Yeah. And so when you operate in perfect love, like in your heart, I'm not doing this for the commission. Ultimately that is the outcome. But I'm doing this out of perfect love. It takes fear out of what are they going to think of me? Or do they think my intentions are wrong? Or do they think I'm just trying to get something out of it? Don't worry about all that. Just operate in perfect love. Operate in willing and acting to the highest good of the other person. Everything else takes care of itself. And I think there's this trust and faith it takes to operate in business like that. And a lot of times we do operate in fear, but it holds us back. If we operate in perfect love towards other people, it's impossible for it to fail long term, right?
Yeah.
I say we're going to put a bow on it right
Yeah, that was perfect.
there. We're going to end that. So, Dennis, I want to say thank you to you for putting on this event last night, for introducing Matt and I to this. I mean, Matt got to meet a lot of them before me, but to this amazing room of people. I want to say thanks to everybody who traveled in. We had people that flew in to come and be a part of this, which is absolutely amazing. And Matt, is there any last thoughts before I close this out?
No, it was so inspiring. If you guys haven't looked up Nick Vujicic on YouTube, I encourage you to go do it and watch some of his videos. You will, without a doubt, be inspired.
Yeah, no, I definitely would recommend that. And so for anybody who's listening right now, we did this live. This is super fun. There's very few times. Matt and I have done this. This is our third time having a live audience and being able to kind of have this experience. Matt and I usually about once a year actually get a chance to be face-to-face. So you're actually getting to experience, we don't hang out a ton. 3,000 miles is a little bit of distance.
It's a long commute.
But with that being said, we want to say thank you to everybody who was here with us live. I want to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in and listening to this. And this is something that Matt and I love doing. So if this is something that you think would be beneficial to your office, to your environment, to your people, we would love to come and be a part of that. If you're listening to this right now and you want to go what did this look like? What did they actually do? Go to YouTube. Check it out there. You can subscribe to it. We'd love to have you be a part of that world with us. And with that, Matt, thank you. Dennis, thank you. Thank you, everybody who's here and involved. And it's really been a pleasure. It's been a great couple days.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.